invest in our resourceful people and our promising industries. So, again, as we connect to our Facebook Live audience, we say a pleasant good evening to everyone who have joined us, who just joined us on Facebook and YouTube via Q95 FM radio, as well as via Push Past 10. So, once again, it is wonderful to have you on board for Roots Connections on Q, whether you're joining us from Dominica, the Caribbean region, or the rest of the world. This is episode number 21 of Roots Connections on Q for today, Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. And I am your host, Simone Mathieu. So we are back to discuss how we can all come together to move our country forward by securing the economic future of Dominicans at home and abroad. So once again, we are looking at the Citizens by Investment program. If not this program, how do we need to identify and invest in our resourceful people and our promising industries. And of course, we've had this topic in the news and in the media for quite a while, since we are unfortunately potentially seeing the end of the CBI program. So, and of course, if we have any guests on the panel, if your mic is unmuted, please make sure that your mic is muted. But today we are taking a different approach to the conversation of, if not the Citizen by Investment program, then what? Because we continue to recognize and celebrate the achievements of our national heroes, such as the recent program that we did on Mr. Herbert Suki Winston for our Kudos for Heroes program. So we continue to recognize them, but we also need to identify other potential Sukis in our society, those who are striving for excellence in various fields and industries, and we need to figure out how can we support them so that we can create multiple Sukis to move our country forward. So that is what we are here to discuss this evening. We cannot begin to count the number of conversations that we've had over the years right here on Q95 about the need to use the funds from the CBI program to create growth engines to diversify the economy of Dominica, to create income earning opportunities. But it just seems that the powers that be have their own agenda. So while we continue to fight to diversify the industries which are receiving the funding from the CBI program, we must identify those among us who can generate much needed income. We want to thank our panel for joining us this evening. Today we are joined by Mr. Alvin Thomas, former General Secretary of the Public Service Union. We are also joined by Miss Everlina Blanc, business owner of Everglow's Beauty Salon, and she will tell us about other ways that she's found to create income for herself. Mr. Tyrone Flanco Nicholas, a computer system administrator. Miss Aymiah George, co-founder of Youth with a Vision. And unfortunately, Abigail Christmas could not be with us today, but she will join us in a future program. But we also have the pleasure of being joined by Miss Lakeyia Joseph, who is the other founder of Youth with a Vision. And just as important, she was one of the young people who attended the youth parliamentary proceedings today, and she will be joining them tomorrow as well. So we want to hear from her with regards to everything that she is undertaking right now. So let's say good evening to the panel. How are you? Thank you for joining us for this important conversation, this important topic. So please unmute your mics as you say good evening to our audience. Is anyone
Hi,
here?
good night, everybody. Thank you for having me. Hoping to enjoy a fruitful discussion, and I look forward to hearing and to finding out more about the panelists, So.
Right. Alvin?
Yes, let me say good evening to that wonderful, energetic young people I see on this panel. I feel honored and privileged to be among such distinguished young folks. I'm one
Yes.
person that believes strongly in young people. Um, of course, as the program develops tonight, I will share some of my own experiences, but I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to listen a lot to you guys. I think young people has a lot of ideas that they can share. But I think part of the problem, and that's just my perspective, we do more hearing the young people than listening to the young people. And there's a big distinction between hearing someone and listening to someone. So tonight,
Certainly.
I'm hoping that I can listen to you guys and hear some of your own experiences. And obviously, as I said, I'll be happy to share some of mine with you. So thanks again, Simon, and I'm happy to be there.
Absolutely. Everlina.
Yes, good evening. Good evening to everyone. I'm here to learn and to contribute. So I'm looking forward to listening to everyone and making my contribution.
Absolutely. Lakeyia?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm still in my parliament attire, but
That's right.
I'm happy to be joining this conversation this evening. Um, Aymiah was actually the one who who had to represent the organization this evening and to speak on behalf of not just myself but the youth by extension. But I decided that I had to make a little time to give a little support and a little encouragement and a little backup or a lot. But I'm happy to be here and to give my contribution to this discussion this evening. So I look forward to the next maybe 20 or 30 minutes that I have with you guys for this evening.
Yes, and thank you for making some time despite your busy schedule today to at least chime in on the conversation. Aymiah, you wanted to say good evening?
Good evening to all the listeners, especially persons from my community. I know they are locked on. I am simply here to provide an insight, well, from a youth perspective on this issue, and I'm very interested in hearing the viewpoints of the other panelists as well. So once
Yes,
again,
certainly.
good evening to everyone.
Yes, and thank you for being here. So again, we have another packed program for you this evening. Good evening to our Q95 listeners, as well as everyone who's joining us via Facebook Live. And again, if you're looking to join the Facebook conversation, which is also always so very engaging, you can hop on over to Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM radio, as well as Push Past 10. Don't forget to click the notification button and also to share the live on this conversation. A special good evening to Lambi on the console, who will be taking our calls, as well as Mr. Sharon Norris and Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, and all the staff over at Q95. Of course, if you missed an episode of the program, you can head on over to Q95DA. Everlina, please mute your mic. Q95DA anytime to catch episodes of this program, as well as all the other wonderful Q95 programs. As a reminder, the last episode of Roots Connections on Q, we talked about the state of youth unemployment and what we can all do to provide hope and direction for our young people. So again, if you joined us just a little bit late, we are looking at, if not the Citizens by Investment Program, then what's the need to identify and invest in our resourceful people and our promising industries. So we have a number of topics to cover this evening. For one, we will work on how can we identify those who are striving for excellence. And as you can already tell, we have several of our members of society, our young people and not so young people, who are here today as examples of those who are striving for excellence. And then we will also talk about, is there an enabling environment in Dominica to support the efforts of those who are striving for excellence? What are the challenges they're facing? What are the obstacles? And how we can all work together as an international community of Dominicans at home and abroad to support their efforts. So let's begin with a brief introduction of our panel. And because Miss Lakeyia has to leave us in a very short space of time, I just want her to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about her. She is certainly someone who is striving from excellence. And from now on, we'll be referring to them as our Dominican strivers. So keep that word, that phrase in mind. So she is absolutely a young Dominican striver. And I want her to introduce herself and just tell us all the ways that she is striving for excellence in her life. Lakeyia, over to you.
And Miss Matthew, let me just rise on a point of order. I consider these persons young as well. They may not be youth, but they're young. Mr. Alvin
Right.
is a young man. But
Certainly.
my name is Lakeyia Joseph. I am 23 years old. I come from the community of Benz, Anzimian, and Solder, just like Aymiah did or does. And I am the co-founder of Youth with a Vision. It's simply a community development based organization, and we strive to carry out projects that promote community development in our tri-community of Benz, Anzimian, and Solder. I'm also the founder of Golden Opportunities, as an organization striving to assist students with their education, provide scholarships, and assist schools with whatever educational needs that they require. I'm also the I am cutting this portfolio short because it might just take all the time that I have remaining with you. But I'm the owner of Nature Blends, and it's an agro processing business that I I embarked on in 2020, transitioning from the University of West Indies in Trinidad to Dominica as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we produce coconut oil, castor oil, mixed concoction oils, lymph and muscle oil, rose water, turmeric and moringa powders, herbal teas, etc. And it's basically a business promoting health, wellness, and overall goodness.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Lucky. And I'm sure our panel doesn't mind because, again, you have a limited time. And at the last minute, you decided to jump into the conversation. And we want to thank you for that. But just because you have to go in a little bit, just tell us some of the challenges and some of the obstacles that have been in your way as you're trying to strive towards excellence. Do you believe that Dominica has an enabling environment for folks like you who are doing your best to strive to be the best?
To be honest, um, I'm not referred to as Honorable Joseph.
Honorable Joseph,
So
I got it.
I served as the opposition leader of Parliament of the first sitting of the National Youth Parliament today, and we basically were discussing, and I had to wholeheartedly oppose the legalization of marijuana and the economic benefits for the youth, um, COVID-19 vaccine mandates, and national development, whether the government should focus on housing the international airports and renewable energy for the next 3 years in order to achieve efficiency. And listening to the debaters and pretty much growing, living, being educated, and operating a business in this environment. It can be a challenge. It can be really tough. It can also be discouraging because if you're not strong, if you are not level-headed, and if you are not persistent and consistent, you will certainly fail, whether it's in education, whether it's in business, or whether it's in your professional life. Because the pressures that the economy and the overall business environment puts on persons, especially the young people, it can be overwhelming at times. So just picture with me for a moment me trying to start my business, or me starting Nature Blends with pretty much no capital, no real assistance from any institution or family, etc. and still choosing to embark on that journey and basically making something out of nothing. I started my business pretty much with about 300 pounds of turmeric that my grandfather had on his farm that he dug. And I give this story all the time. I give this story all the time. And he mentioned to me that he dug 3 bags of turmeric, 100 pounds each, for someone, and for whatever reason, whatever circumstances that came up, they could not come to purchase the turmeric anymore. So it was basically a matter of leaving it to rot, planting it planting it back into the ground and wait another 2 3 years for a full crop again, or transforming it into something that you can actually make some income from. And without the I am fresh. Well, I haven't completed my degrees in agricultural economics and extension and business operations at the University of the West Indies yet. But at the time, I was in my second year, so I had a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of technical experience and stuff like that from school, and pretty much being in the agriculture sector for a very long time. My family, my grandfather has always been a small scale farmer, and I've been exposed to farming from a very young age. And basically, that is our livelihood. We want to cook lunch today. We can dig a dash in, we can pick a fig on a tree, we can get a plantain somewhere. So it's always been that kind of environment. So it was nothing new to me, but whenever those opportunities come to you, it's a matter of, are you going to transform it into something sustainable, or are you just going to do it for the short term? So I could have decided to transform the 300 pounds of turmeric into turmeric powder, get the money, and move on with my life. Because I mean, the goal is achieved, right? The turmeric was not it was not wasted. We did not have to throw it away or anything like that. So the goal was achieved, and I transformed that turmeric powder into the turmeric root into turmeric powder. And the first couple times it was terrible. Terrible, because I mean, you don't have the machinery, we don't have the expertise, we don't have the, although I did a lot of research, but having it on paper and in reality are two completely different things. So fast forwarding, we did the turmeric powder. It came out so enough, good enough to sell. I started selling it for my neighbors and my close friends and stuff like that. And they started asking for coconut oil. And I mean, we've made coconut oil before, but making coconut oil at a certain level or a certain standard that is good for the market, that's a whole different story. Because you can grind your coconuts, boil it, or put it to settle and use it for home. But what about the shelf life? What about the quality? What about the procedures you use to make the oil and all that? But I still decided, you know what, we're going into coconut oil because people are asking for it. And then went into castor oil. Then I started experimenting with the moringa, making moringa powder. And then where the business really got its name, I I decided one day, because I had a really bad hair and skin condition. I decided one day, what if I take that castor oil and that coconut oil and I mix it with some natural ingredients? Don't you think it will give me an answer to a solution to my hair and skin problems? And then I blended I blended stuff like the turmeric, bay leaf, lemongrass, hibiscus, and I made the mixed concoction. And that's when Nature Blends got its name. Oh, sorry. That's when Nature Blends got its name. I basically just put some natural ingredients together. I mixed the oils, and the mixed concoction is one of our most famous and most effective products right now. So I and then 2 years down the line, it is proven, even with me being a young entrepreneur and somewhat successful in my own right, it's a very, very difficult environment to maneuver. it's a very stressful and strenuous economic environment, because I have seen my raw materials and my packaging materials and all that gone from $1 to $3 over the last 2 years. I have seen prices of products that my competitors have on the market. The prices have gone up probably almost 50% because they want to accommodate for their expenses. So raw materials go up, packaging materials go up. So obviously they put up on the prices of the products. But so far, I have not added, or I have not made my products any significantly any more expensive than it was in 2020. I mean, when you have products and they are of a certain quality and they are of a certain standard, you don't have to devalue or undervalue your products. You understand? So my products are adequately priced for the quality and the level of professionalism that they bring, and the effectiveness and all that. But it that doesn't matter. That's a whole other discussion. That is just to say that operating a business in Dominica right now, it's nothing easy, especially when you are producing a tangible product. Aymiah is the owner of Aymiah's Adverts, and she does advertisements and audio ads, video ads, flyers, posters, and stuff like that. So she also faces challenges, because she would do a job for someone, and probably their financial situation doesn't even allow them to be able to afford the services that she brings, even if it's needed or it's necessary. And so she probably have to try and work with them, and try and develop a plan or that kind of thing. She probably can give you a little better
Yeah, and
idea
I
of
will
some
go
of the
over to
challenges
her
that
in a
we face.
minute.
But that is just to tell you, she's in the service sector. I am in the goods sector, goods and services, and it's a very difficult environment to maneuver.
Yeah, and
Access to finance.
I wanna
Mhm.
thank you, Lakeyia. I'll come back to you if you're still
Mhm.
on with us. But I want to thank you for, despite your busy schedule being in Parliament, Youth Parliament today, that you took some time to be with us today. And I want to also thank the panel for giving her an opportunity to speak beforehand. And again, she is a Dominican striver. These are Dominicans at home and abroad who had, they come from humble beginnings, but are relentless in their pursuit of excellence in a field of profession. And so we want to highlight them. We want to celebrate them because they show as examples of what we're trying to create in Dominica. So as we continue with the introductions, Mr. Alvin Thomas, I'd like to come over to you just to remind our audience who you are, and then we'll go around the room just for the introductions before we begin the conversation.
All right, thank you, Simone, again. Let me say to the panelists on the show this evening, thank you for being a part of that discussion. As I indicated earlier, I feel so privileged and honored to be among this, what I would consider distinguished young persons. Just to say very quickly, Lakeyia, we're going to want more of you. I know you're going to leave soon, but I'm sure I'm going to be talking with Simone because that story is so intrigued and so interesting. I mean, I'm glued and I want to hear more. I want to hear more. I want to hear more. So we're going to bring you back on board. So I'm serving notice on you. You better make some time for us, okay? Because that story needs to be told so that other young persons and not so young persons can hear that story. These are the kind of stories we want to hear. These are the stories we want to hear. So I'm telling you, once you're done with your parliamentary, whatever it is, you got to come back here. Because on Simon's platform, you have a wide audience. I'm not talking hundreds, I'm talking thousands. So I'm just plugging that in for what it's worth, Simone. I'll
Thank
ask
you,
for
Alvin.
permission later. But briefly to say, though, that as introduced, my name is Alvin Thomas. Some of you may have heard that name before and not be able to put a face to it. But I reside in the United States. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. But prior to I migrating to the US, I was practically involved in God knows how many things in Dominica. From a very young age, I've been an activist, a troublemaker. As John Wiss, one of our congressmen in
I
the
think
US,
he's
causing
freezing.
good because I know what I did when I was in my 20s. Fighters back, yes, they served that organization for many years, well over 8, almost 9 years. And also, I had a very extended period in the public service. Must have served well over 20 something years, 25 or more service in the public service, various ministries. My last ministry that I worked in was the Ministry of Tourism, where I was the assistant secretary, was also postmaster general for a period. Served in Brussels with Ambassador Sovereign as secretary to the ambassador, was the president of JC's Dominica. I'm currently a senator of that organization, JCI International, and also served for well over 20 something years on the Rosal Credit Union board, vice president of the board, chairman, president of the Dominica Cooperative Credit Union League. So it goes on and on. I was the general manager of Kyrie FM just prior to I migrating. I worked there for a whole year. Had a good team, all folks like Matt Peltier and Vadina and all those folks were part of my staff then as general manager of Kyrie FM. But I will end by saying, though, that I love working with young people. I mean, that's where I get my joy. That's where I am so excited. And like being a member of the JCI, one of our tenets says that service to humanity is the best work of life. And once I can provide that service to humanity, I feel fulfilled. I feel uplifted. So that's who I am. And although I'm in Atlanta, like Simone, my heart is in Dominica. My heart is in Dominica, and I will fight. I will speak. I will be there championing Dominica cause for Dominica to be a better Dominica for every Dominicans, young and old, especially our young people. So that's who I am. I'll end here for now.
Yes, thank you very much, Alvin. So again, brief introductions, and we go over to Miss Everlina Blanc. Just give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Let me first recognize the host, Simone. Yes. And other distinguished persons on this panel. I am rather privileged to bring your presence. My name is Everlina Blanc, a hairdresser. I've been in business, been a hairdresser for the past 3 decades, you could say, and the sole proprietor of Everglow's Beauty Salon. I also host the talk show, The Love Train, which every other Friday. I've been a hairdresser. Being a hairdresser, I love it. I mean, it's my passion. It's my passion. I also like decorating, designing, and I did 2 courses at UE, 1 and 2 in event management. So again, it's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to just join in the discussion and listen to everyone. So that's me, Everglow, your hairdresser.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Evelina. Flacco, let's go across to you. You're muted. You're muted, Flacco.
Yes, I was saying, thank you for the opportunity, and I think the protocol has already been established. Well, I'm known as Flacco, one of the members of Moonserie, but formally I am Tyrone Nicholas, better known as the son of the bass player Freddie Nicholas. I think my father a little more famous than me. I'm a computer systems administrator, and I've been involved in that line of work for the past 23 years. Ever since I left college, I attended the Clifton Jupini Community College, and I've worked a number of places. And I may appear to be one of the youth, but I'm a little bit further along, so I may look the part, but
You're
I'm
youthful in
43.
spirit.
Yes, I'm 43 years old, so I am well lived. Me and Dominica, we are the same age. I think just after the times of 79, I was still in my mother's arm. So my mother was a banker. She worked her whole life in the banking sector. She's deceased. Karen Nicholas, and a lot of the values and the traits that I have, people usually say that I have a lot of her. And when I look at the ladies on the panel and they giving their experiences, um, I can relate because I come up in a predominantly raised by ladies, my grandmother, my auntie, my sisters, my cousins. So I've seen that that struggle for attainment, not just by my father, but particularly by my mother, because my dad was always out there, trying to make the ends meet. And so I spent a lot of time with the matriarchal side of my family. Yeah. So um I hope that we'll get the opportunity for me to share a little more. I'm going to
Yes.
give the other panelists a little opportunity to share a little about themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And you don't mind we call you Flacco? You want to be called Tyrone?
Flacco is fine.
Okay,
I like
okay.
Flacco.
Just making sure. Emma, coming over to you.
Hi, good night, everybody. So my name is Aymiah George. I am from the tri-community of Benz, Ansimi, and Ansolda. I am currently a student at the UWood Law School in Trinidad. I have already completed my first phase, which is my bachelor's at the University of the West Indies Caville campus. And apart from being a student and being passionate about law, I am also passionate about others and persons within my community and country by extension. I have co-founded a community organization called Youth with a Vision, and I own a small business, advertising business marketing, which is Aymiah's Adverts, and I seek to give other small businesses the opportunity to promote themselves. So in sum, this is who I am, and thank you for having me tonight.
Yes, thank you. And I can tell we're going to have a very engaging, energetic conversation this evening. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we do, let's make sure we acknowledge everyone who's joining us via the Facebook Live. And again, if you want to join in on the conversation that has already begun on Facebook, you can go on over to Q95 FM Radio on Facebook and YouTube, as well as Push Past 10. So we see we have quite an audience. David Joseph, Hamelina Watson Duvany is here. Jennifer Cuffy, Chris Bugano, nice to see you. Murray Jules, Dorian Dorival, Stanley Paul, Mystery Pro, Coco for Sale is here with us. Viva Mamo, my mom, Medina Senhouse, nice to see you. Let's see who else is joining us. Nikisha Richards, Carolyn Washington, good evening to you. Penny Shirley, good evening. Cecilia Phipps, Jess Marina, Ika Dorival, Tina Bell de Ramon, always lovely to see you. Patricia Fontaine, Sheffy Fridges is here, and Fa Allen of the names I can see. So come on over to the Facebook Live as we begin the conversation. And so to our panel, I think it is very important that as we begin our discussion this evening, that we look at the environment which produced the Sukis of Dominica back in the 70s and the 80s, those who came from very humble beginnings but were able to create a path to success, not only for themselves but for others who benefited financially from the businesses they created. And by the way, when we speak of Suki, we're just using him as an example. He's not the only example of our Dominican brothers and sisters that I want us to keep in mind. Another example that immediately comes to mind is Mr. Earl Etienne, who unfortunately passed away recently, and we had the pleasure of honoring his life with the program we did with Mr. Raymond Lawrence, Scholar Armour, and Arnold Tulo on Push Past 10 recently, where we celebrated him as a national treasure. And another person who immediately comes to mind, who we all know, Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, who also came from humble beginnings and created a path. So Alvin and the panel, as we come to begin our discussion, I want us to look at the environment in the 70s and the 80s, and even before then, which allowed these men and women to excel, to thrive in business, industry, farming, and the like. And of course, Facebook, we want to engage you as well. So feel free to chime in on the discussion. So Alvin, let me come over to you as we begin this conversation.
Thank you, Simone. I'm not sure Lakeyia, is Lakeyia going to be leaving us shortly? Because
well, if you want to address her, you can address her right now. She's here.
Lakeyia, yes, actually, my team, I extended the start of the meeting to 8:45, so we should be starting in about 5 minutes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, Simone, I will respond to the comment or the statement, the question that you asked. But I would want Lakeyia, I'm sure she know of maybe not the Sukis, but some of the older folks in her community or in Dominica. And if she can respond to that before she leaves, and then obviously I could come in after that just to give her that benefit.
Excellent. And Everlina, do me a favor. Can you mute your mic, please?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you. Lakeyia, the floor is yours.
What was the question? Sorry, I missed it.
The environment back in the 70s and the 80s that allowed so many people to become Sukis, to create businesses, to create financial opportunities for others in their community.
Well, and I will reference my presentation at the National Youth Parliament today. I mean, I haven't given my concrete position on the topics because I merely had to introduce my team stance. But as I mentioned in my presentation today, the economic era that we are experiencing now was something completely different to the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Business in general was a priority. You would sell popcorn. Let me talk about my community. There were persons selling popcorn for 10 cents in my community. 10 cents, maybe even less. But that's what I met. And I met it expensive. Understand? But popcorn, bread, Mr. Medrick, God rest his soul, he's departed. And his bakery is still in existence because they merely started with what they had, where they were, and they built on it. And today I emphasize in my presentation that rigid buildings require equally rigid foundations. So you cannot build a rigid building on a foundation that is falling apart. And the same goes to persons willing to start businesses today. If the government and the economic environment is not conducive in Dominica, we will never be able to create strong businesses. And I am not saying that the government is not providing avenues and laying the foundations for persons to start businesses, because they're investing in agriculture, they're investing in businesses, and sometimes the routes that they go about implementing those programs and those projects may not be all the best. They may not be comprehensive. They may not be tried and tested or properly researched, but at least they show some interest in getting the young persons and even persons in general to start their businesses and to actually contribute to the economic environment of Dominica. And it is our responsibility as persons living both here and abroad young persons, old persons, to take responsibility of where you are at the time that you can. Because if I, as a young entrepreneur, sorry, um, if I as a young entrepreneur, um, I am successful in my business and I don't want to help someone else who is trying to start the business, whether it's to provide mentorship, support, or just a word of encouragement, or just to purchase a product from them when they start their business, or to patronize them if they're providing a service, then the business environment will never be revolutionized. And as I stated today, agriculture is the backbone of our economy. And for some time now, we have been investing in agriculture just because we feel guilty, so to speak. That's how I feel. We invest in agriculture because to some extent we feel guilty that we are not giving it the priority that it deserves. The proposing side on the National Youth Parliament is debating to legalize marijuana. But the young persons don't even want to plant peppers. That doesn't even require a lot of attention. Cucumbers, watermelon, pumpkins, for example. So how are we as young persons going to put all that effort into planting a crop such as marijuana and transforming it into something that is marketable and exportable and usable around the world? So we as the young persons have to be able to prepare ourselves and to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we are presented with. And if we are not presented with those opportunities, do like me, create them for yourselves. Because Miss Jody Dublin Dangaben posted a status a few weeks ago. I saw it a few weeks ago, and she said some persons are busy fighting for a seat at the table, when she herself and many other youth are actually getting their tools ready to build their own tables to give others a chance to sit at their table. And that's how our society works. There will never be one table to fit everyone. And so that's why we have to get ourselves ready, put ourselves in gear, whether we feel like we're ready or not. Start with what you have, where you are, and build your own table. Because you might just be able to give somebody else an opportunity to gain the experience, to gain the knowledge, and eventually to get themselves ready to build their own table. And they give someone else an opportunity to have a seat at that table. And that's how we revolutionize the economy. Everyone cannot depend on one thing. And that brings us back to the idea of, if not the CBI, then what? If not NEP, then what? If not Yes We Care, then what? If not the boats coming at the ports, then what? We need to, as a people, create certain opportunities for ourselves if the opportunities are not presented to us. So that's just my perspective on what it was like before and what it is like now. Because starting my business, it has not been a difficult one. I have been faced with challenges. It's not something, it did not kill me. It did not kill me. I overcome some of those challenges because access to finance, access to land, getting markets for your products, it's a very difficult journey to take. And that's why most persons, if you don't have that entrepreneurial mindset and you don't have that drive and consistency and persistence, you will fall halfway because you won't have the motivation to go ahead. When you see you budgeted to spend $300 a month, let's just say, for example, you budgeted to spend $300 a month because you budgeted for your lights, your water, your packaging materials, your labor, your this, your that, and you spend $300 this month, and then next month you spend six. So your profits are basically cut in half, and that in itself is a discouragement, because sometimes we don't think about the long run. I have taken a lot of losses being a business owner. And to be very honest, up until now, it's been 2 years and I'm still not worried about the profits. I am worried about, one, the impact that my products and my business is making on not just myself and my family, but the people of Dominica and by extension the world, because the products are available worldwide, and the economic impact that it's having on the country. It may not be 5% or 10% of the economy, but it's blocking a hole somewhere. like we locally say, it's blocking a hole. And if everybody decides or decide that they are blocking a hole, then a lot of holes will be blocked. So whether you're here or you are abroad, you have a large business or small business, my admonition to you is to start where you are with what you have and do what you can, how you can, when you can. And eventually, once you have a vision, you have a mission, you are persistent, consistent, and motivated, you will reach just as far as some of the most successful people that we see every day.
Yes,
Wow.
excellent. Thank you,
Wow.
Lakeyia. Alvin, let me come over to you.
Wow.
And as we're talking
Wow.
about this question, I want us to kind of keep in mind what a 25-year-old, a typical 25-year-old would have accomplished in the 70s and the 80s versus what a typical 25-year-old is able to accomplish in the environment in Dominic. And as we're talking about this, and I want everyone to feel free to chime in, don't necessarily wait for me to call on you. Just tell us about if you believe that the environment has changed. Was there a more enabling environment in the 70s and the 80s versus now? And as we come around, Flacco, I want you to, for example, talk to us about, your father, Freddie Nicholas, and what he was able to achieve in his career versus what musicians and performers are able to achieve in Dominica. So, Alvin, I'm going to come over to you, then Everlina, then Aymiah, and
Yeah.
then Flacco. So we'll go
Well,
around the room.
thanks again. Thanks, Nicole. And let me say thank you to Lakeyia again. Thank you for your contribution. And you use a word in your contribution, enabling environment. And I want us to stick a pin on that, because that is critical. Because I took a few notes when you were speaking earlier, and you said how strenuous and stressful it was. And I think that would apply for anyone going into business, whether it's in Dominica or in the US. It's a very strenuous and stressful environment for any entrepreneur, even here in the US. And you mentioned that, but in your presentation just a few minutes ago, you made reference to enabling environment. And I think that is so critical because we've heard the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And we heard Flacco earlier when he said his aunts, his sisters, and all of those persons who were involved in molding him to what he is today. And I think this is part of what may be lacking, and it's not as prevalent as it was back then. I will concede and admit to you that the direction and the vision that I'm seeing for our country is not where it should be. I'm being very candid about it. And where there is no vision, they say, a people perish. I know Simone asked the question, if not the CBI, then what? Last night on a program, the Global View, you had a few panelists there. You had Dr. Thompson Fontaine, Gabriel Christian, and the leader of the opposition party and the leader of the Freedom Party, I believe. And Gabriel Christian referenced the island of Singapore. And I would like each one of you here, when we're done with this discussion, go grab a copy. I will try and find the title of Singapore. And let me just give you, just draw some parallel. The island of Singapore is 281.3 square miles, which is about the same size of Dominica. The island of Singapore population is 5.6 million people. Our population is what, 70,000? 5.6 million. So picture in your mind 3 million or 2 million people on Dominica. You might say, oh, where are they going to stay? Where are we going to put them? Okay. The GDP per capita of Singapore is 59.797 US dollars, 59.7 thousand US dollars, almost $60,000 GDP per capita. That's telling you how much money one person in Singapore can earn, GDP per capita. The resources of Singapore, what they quote as their resource, is arable land, the country, beautiful scenery, and fish. That's their resource. No oil, no bauxite, no timber, no water or anything like that. Okay?
And Mr. Thomas, not to cut you, but we have that and more.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm
Yes,
coming
that's where
to.
he's
That's why I'm
going.
making that
That's all I will
comparison.
say. We have that and
That's
more.
why I'm making that comparison based on what you said earlier. Let's start where we are. Singapore gained independence in 1965. So they were about 13 years ahead of us. We came in 1978. So this year they'll be 57, they're about this year will be 44. And I'm saying this to say that our resource lies in our people, our human capital, young persons like yourself, like is it Aymiah or Aymiah? Aymiah, Flacco, Everlina, Lakeyia. That is where the future lies, in young persons like yourself. But we need that enabling environment, which unfortunately is not where it is. Let me just say to you very briefly, when the current CBI program, which is what it is now, that program started back in the 90s. Just maybe the initial discussion and all of that started about 91, thereabout. And it was right after Hurricane David, of course, when the Freedom Party came in, and then bananas were becoming a challenge. We got struck by Hurricane David in 79, and the government was posed with a situation, boy, where can we get some revenue to every country? And they call it the economic citizen. And it was structured in a way where it was going to target tourism, agriculture, and I think they had a third leg of it, specific. Over the years, successive governments, the UWP and then the Labour Party, has reconfigured it and amended and all of that. And now we call it citizen by investment. And I'll share later on the discussion some statistics as it relates to the CBI. But here we are in an environment where presumably we are getting a lot of revenue by CBI revenue. But that revenue, the enabling environment that I spoke about earlier, is not channeling in a sustainable way to sustain our economy. I mean, we here talk about building hotels. I have no thing about building hotels. Yes. But we have housing. Yes, there are people that will need housing. And we've had a housing project before. That's another discussion we can have a whole debate on. We've had the Baffested housing project. We have had the Jimmy housing project. We had the Canefield housing project. We have a number of housing projects that we've done, previous governments have done before. But the point I want to make is that unless we invest some of that in our people and in some sort of sustainable, productive way. For example, take Lakeyia. Lakeyia is a young entrepreneur doing this nature blend or whatever she call it. We should have had an institution established in Dominica where some of that CBI money goes in there, where Lakeyia can walk here with a business plan and say, hey, this is what I've been doing for the last 2 years, and I need some working capital, and should be able to get $50,000, $100,000, $250,000 at 2%. And find markets for her. And the Ministry of Trade and Marketing could help promote and push the product for her. That's the enabling environment that Everlina can walk in and say, hey, I want to expand. I have an outlet on Kennedy Avenue. I want to put one in Portsmouth. And I maybe want to put one in St. Joseph. But then she's going to need staff in there. So here's my business plan. Here's what I can do. Give me $70,000. And assist, enable her. You have this young man who has a bakery, baking bread. Maybe he's baking it now on wood, and he wants to upgrade and get some technology with it. So it annoys me a little, or maybe I shouldn't even say a little. It annoys me a lot when I see that kind of mismanagement of the resources. And we have young person like the Lakeyia, the Flacco, the Everlina, the Aymiah, out there trying to do something, and that enabling environment is not there.
Alvin, yeah, and I can see Everlina is trying to jump in. So let Everlina jump in, and then Flacco and Aymiah will come on.
I have started the fire.
Miss Blanc,
Alvin.
Miss Blanc, I have to make my
Yes,
my very
as an
Hold on. I think Lakeyia, you need to head out.
yes,
yes,
she
I need
said
to make
she.
Okay, well,
my
thank you for joining
premature
us.
departure.
Yes, we'll have you on another program. Thank you so
Great
much.
having
No
you. Have a
problem.
good evening.
All right,
Thank you
Great
for
bye-bye.
having
having
you,
me,
Evan.
Mr.
Yes,
Thomas. Thank you for your insight. I'm actually going to include some of those points in my presentation tomorrow. And
Okay,
yes,
we
I
gotta
am
talk.
here.
We gotta talk. You'll get my
Yes, for
information
sure.
from
Miss
Simon. We
Matthew will
must
give
talk.
you
I
my
want
yes,
to
I'll
number.
talk
give
to
it.
you.
I'll connect you guys.
Sure, Emma,
Okay, excellent.
Okay, goodbye.
hold the fort, hold the fort, and
She'll do
represent
well. She'll do
represent
well.
firm and strong.
All right. Thank you,
All
Lakeyia.
right. Have a good night,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes. Good night, Everlina.
And
Over to
thank
you.
you to the listeners. Some persons message me saying that they're listening. And let me just share this one message that someone just sent me.
Yes.
And it's a screenshot from someone else's status. And that's just to show you how people people relate, or how people are impacted when they can relate to you. So this person, I don't know them personally, and I don't think they know me personally. They probably know of me, but they're probably hearing me on the radio right now. And they posted on their status and they said, "Big up Nature Blend's owner. She shows us young folks that many things are possible despite how challenging it may be here in Dominica. Age is just a number."
Oh,
Excellent.
And
beautiful.
sometimes when you feel that people are not watching and people are not listening and people don't have their eyes and their ears on you, they do. So my admonition to the young persons are just to continue doing what you love, continue doing what you have to do, continue making positive impacts on your communities and your country by extension, and pretty much do everything in your power to elevate yourselves, your family, and your country by extension, because you never know what taking that small step in probably starting your business or helping someone else, or lending a hand or giving a word of encouragement to someone. You never know how far that might take you or even someone else. So let's continue doing what we have to do for ourselves, our family, and our country. And let us continue inspiring and motivating the young persons to be their best, to do their best, and to ultimately make Dominica the best place to live, and to ensure that we create an enabling environments for the young persons.
Yes. Thank you,
All right,
Lakeyia.
thank
So
you.
thank you for having me again,
All right.
and
Yes,
I'll
we'll
be
connect.
listening, but I won't be able to be on with you because
Yes,
I
Thank
that's
have
you.
I have a parliamentary meeting right now.
yes, that's fine. Have a good evening.
You too, guys.
Evelina,
Thank
over to
you.
you.
Yes, good evening again. I consider myself to be a very industrious person, and I put it into my work and my personal life. You know, as an individual who have had the business for 19 years, it has not been easy. You know, it has not been easy. I mean, we have to serve the customers. We have to look out for ourselves, and it's like sometimes I'm going to talk as in a hairdresser, you know. Sometimes, Mr. Thomas, somebody comes to you, right? And they come and they interject all their problems into you. But as a hairdresser, you have to be so mature to listen. It's true they come for a service and you have to provide it. But then they come with problems, their own little problem as well, and they lay it on you. So therefore, you have double duty right there, you know. And as to the question as to identifying the Suki in us, I mean, I'm going to strive to be a Suki or Macmillan or any of the others, because you have to strive for success and you have to be the best that you can be. So I'm going to strive to be one of them. I mean, we're just going to have to, we're going to do our best and just go and just go and just go, you know? So again, as Mr. Thomas said, we have to create an enabling environment,
Yes.
and I'm just there to do what I have to do and to keep striving and to keep doing more and to just provide for my customers, because this is important, you know, as a
Yeah.
hairdresser.
Yeah,
And
and
again, for
I'll
those
come
who
back to you, and I want to come back to you, Everlina, but we'll touch on something else later. Aymiah, let me come over to you. Flacco, we're saving the best for last, so I'll come to you in a minute. Aymiah, let me come over to you. So, what was different? What was the environment, Aymiah, that created the Sukis, the Earl Etiennes, the Mr. G's, all the successful folks? Everlina, mute your mic. All the successful folks that emerged in the 70s and 80s, was there more of an enabling environment than we see today? What are your views on that?
To answer in some, I would say that in the 70s and 80s, what was different than now is a stable economy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to look at it from different aspects. And even with agriculture, right, we're saying now that young people are not going into agriculture. Now, if you date back to the 70s and 80s, young persons could go into agriculture because there were access to regional and international markets. What is there now which would propel a young person to put themselves forward in agriculture or in other fields within the economy? So back then, there was somewhat more of an open space so that persons could present themselves and obtain economic benefits. So, for example, we see what when you ask the persons before, their access as opposed to persons now. So you would see that farmers could even send their children to school because they have access to land titles, so you can maybe take a loan or you could fund it fully. Right now, we live in an economy where it is difficult for young persons like myself to ever have access to land. I am 23 years of age and I do not foresee myself having a portion of land bought by myself anytime soon, because how do I go about doing that? Whereas before, even if persons maybe at my age, because we are differentiating between persons 25 years before and persons 25 years now. So back then, whereas maybe they didn't work for it, their parents worked so hard before that they have more access to resources. Whereas my parents now are still in the Guaya segment.
Mm-hmm.
So persons back then, they actually got access and they were born into a more stable economy. So they could work harder and bring themselves higher. Whereas now it's somewhat like we're starting from scratch. So as young persons, we need to look at fields, different fields, and see how we can diversify ourselves. Now, we were asking, how do we pinpoint these Sukis? One thing I would recommend is a community by community initiative. Because you may ask yourself, how did Aymiah or how did Lakeyia get to this program tonight? Persons may say, wait, these two young persons, how did they get access to Simone Mathieu? How did that happen? And it's because of our attitude towards our community and the prevalence and the work that we do. So if we have a team of persons doing a community by community initiative, we can pinpoint persons who are actually influential in sports, in education, in business, and just going ahead with this kind of aspect, it will help us to most definitely pinpoint the youth. And when we pinpoint the youth, remember the youth is actually the foundation of our economy. We're the ones going to build it, because the persons like Mr. Thomas will retire and we're going to need younger persons to continue to work. And it doesn't make sense if we are working and we are not obtaining what we need to contribute to our economy. So working and working for nothing, it doesn't make sense at the end of the day. So I believe the difference between then and now is more of a stable economy. And even, it's not so much of mindset, because persons like to pinpoint on the youth mindset that the youth are not willing to work, the youth are not willing to contribute, but contribute to what, when, how, why. So we have to ask ourselves bigger questions when we're looking at moving away from, a fixed economy into more of a growth mindset. So that's my contribution.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. And I can tell that Flacco is bursting. He has so much to contribute to the conversation. So Flacco, let's head on over to you.
Ah, boy. Yes. It's been hard sitting here listening to all you and not being able to drop my little 2 cents, Yeah, but to me, between Alvin and the rest of the panelists, they've basically touched on a large majority of the things, the issues that we need to address. But let me just start with a little, because I had a whole train of ideas that I would like to present. Some of them we have already discussed, some of the other panelists have already discussed. But Simone asked me to talk a little about my father.
Yes.
My father, back in the days, I don't think the young man was so much in the attitude of taking chances with drug trafficking and so on, like it exists today. People like maybe Gordon Henderson and my father can tell you, when they were making Backdoor, it was to go and play music, and those are the stories that I grew up knowing, and this man taught me, that in everything that you should have some temperance, and that nothing is permanent. The only thing that is constant is change, and the value of simplicity, and also that we shouldn't be too harsh in judging people, because everybody is at a different stage of growth, and we have to allow them to go through their growth, their own challenges. And lastly, he taught me to live before I die. I think a lot of the issues that we're facing is because of the most basic unit of our society, and the because while we're here addressing the business ownership and all of these things, we fundamentally have not addressed the basic unit of our society, which is the family. you know Home is where everything starts, and a lot of the struggle that budding entrepreneurs are going through is how to balance these things, how to balance home with business and perhaps other things. Um, being a network administrator, I can see the advantages that the technology can bring to small and budding businesses. For example, renting storefronts and those stuff is not so much of a pressing challenge anymore, because you can have an online store, you can market and distribute your products online, you can use these services to book appointments and to accept payments and all of these things. But the question is, are we leveraging those things to our advantage, uh, as well as having the discussions about land ownership and all of these? Um, I know I might be going all over the place, but I going to bring it to a focus. Essentially, I'm saying that time wasted cannot be regained, and it is important that we capture the focus of our youth before they hit that range of like 25 and so 25 and going beyond. We need to steer their focus into rebuilding a thriving middle class, and that will fuel the legacy that we collectively can appreciate. For that to happen, we need our youth to be focused on issues such as land and home ownership, as opposed to renting or public housing like what currently exists. We need a youth that is aware of the different types of assets which retain equity, as opposed to assets which depreciate over time and soon become a liability in their own right. Because while most of our youth are obsessed and consumed with vehicles and clothes and all these temporary and fleeting things. They have no concept of wear and tear as opposed to appreciating value. And much of your youth, what you take that energy of your youth and put it into, whether it be selling your time, because most of us are employed not in businesses of our own, but we collect salaries. And rather than take a consumer perspective at money, take a different approach as to taking that money and investing it into land and assets that will appreciate over time and put you in the position to build your independence and your wealth. Because I wouldn't want to share too much of my personal, but a lot of young people are renting, and the homeowners are the ones that are enjoying the fruits of these people youth. To me, the younger you can reach that point of owning land, and to me that is where the whole access to capital begins.
Absolutely.
Because any bank you go, anywhere you go to because I mean, how many of us inherit some from some wealthy family, or hardly any of us are being left even a piece of land or even a little money on an account. So it's
Well, and I
important.
also think Amos said it best. Where how can you afford land when you're still in what she calls the guaye phase?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
parents are still in the guaye phase. But
But
let me make sure that we also engage our telephone audience in the conversation. So, Lambi, if you can go ahead and run the phone numbers, and then Alvin, I want to come over to you because I believe there's some research information you wanted to share with us. Then, Everlina, I want to come to you to just tell us how you keep reinventing yourself to create those income opportunities that we talk about, your seasonal crafts that you do and all the ways that you keep reinventing yourself as a business owner. And then, Aymiah, we will circle back to you. So, Lambi, let's give out the phone numbers, please.
The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. The overseas access number 305-432-9624. Let me run these numbers again. 449-3095-9697, 616-4257, 305-432-9624. Back to you, Simone.
Yes, and we will just interrupt us if a call is coming in. But before we have you answer the question, Alvin, we just want to remind everyone you're listening to Roots Connections on Q right here on Q95, the big station. And we are joined by Mr. Alvin Thomas, Miss Everlina Blanc, Mr. Tyrone Flacco, Nicholas, as well as Miss Aymiah George. And we're talking about, if not the Citizen by Investment program, then what? The need to identify and invest in our resourceful people and our promising industry. So we're taking a different approach to the CBI conversation this evening, because as we can see, Dominica is 55% of the economy is dependent on the CBI program. And with the threat of that program going away, we now have to consider and look at those who will be able to lead in business, be able to lead in industry and various fields. So how do we identify those who are striving for excellence? How do we identify the other potential Sukis in our Dominican society so they can lead the way in building the economic opportunities and gaining the financial independence that is so needed in our society? And Facebook, I see you're having a very engaging conversation. I'm coming over to you in a little bit, but in the meantime, we say good evening to Thaddeus James, Eagle Mike, Avril LeBlanc, Peter Thomas. We have quite an audience, so thank you for joining us. Alvin, over to you.
Thanks, Simone. Let me just, again, going back to that enabling environment. And Aymiah made a very fundamental point. I mean, Aymiah said she's 20.
Sorry, Alvin, we have a call. I'm so sorry.
Good evening, caller.
Yes,
Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening to your panel, Ambi, and everybody else.
Good evening.
Yeah, very interesting conversation. And I think Simone went right back to the headline of the conversation. If not CBI, then what? So I've sat here, I've heard a lot of very inspirational beginnings, you know, to do with stories of young entrepreneurs. And I also noticed that a lot of them ended up in what we can consider stop. And it's amazing that you'll have that program tonight, because early on I was listening to a different program, and yesterday I was listening to some of the CBI agents on the other side program. And I want to reference, and I want you all to understand what I'm saying carefully. If not CBI, then what? In like a successful entrepreneur like Jungle Bay, Mr. Sam Raphael, I must commend him for doing a brilliant job with his development and his management ethics. Apparently, it seems to be working almost to perfection, and I have very good reviews of his service rendered at Jungle Bay and the amenities and you know, the whole layout and everything. So it's like far excellent, you know. And I'm saying to myself, but I listen to him carefully. I say, but why don't we in Dominica, some of the leading entrepreneurs, you know, take a hand up from some of our young people that don't have the resources, such as the capital rich, like they have. They were awarded agents. They reinvest in their proceeds from their agency, from their CBI program, or some of them came from big families with a lot of collaterals and land and already established businesses, and you know, and it just carried on from generation to generation. So I'm saying to myself, but why can't some of those guys really adopt?
Yeah, just let me finish make my point. But
Flacco, use your mic.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm saying why can't they just, you know, take a hand up? Everybody talking about Suki, but why don't Mr. Suki himself create some kind of mentoring platform instead of just a public example of a success, he being a successful businessman? It would be nice for him to put two people under his wing and see exactly what they need. First of all, I believe in education when it comes for executing things to perfection, you know, so you have to take the necessary educational courses or whatever in short space of time as possible, of course at UE or something, in order to have management ethics moving forward before you start to implement. And the successful entrepreneurs, before they start to render over their science, or their formula, I should say, in what made them successful. And I think that is the way we should go, because we have to try to use what we have already established in Dominica and magnify. And the only way we can do that is for who is already running to grab those on the low. Because those on the low, at no point in time, there's no range of where they can get, like Flacco said, you know, if you don't have capital and that base, you can smoke your pipe. So
yes,
some people,
thank you, caller. Thank you.
And all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that is kind of where the discussion is heading this evening. So stay tuned for the rest of the conversation. Alvin, let's come over to you. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Again, earlier when I spoke, I said I'm going to do a lot of listening with especially these young folks who are there right now. And obviously I will share some of my experiences as one might say the elder on the team. And I got a sense Flacco was going to conclude on something.
Yes,
so,
I'm going to go over to him next.
So as soon as I'm done, I will yield some of my time to him.
Yes.
But as far as the question of, if not the CBI, and I think the question of the enabling environment came up as a discussion point. And of course, you raised the Suki. But Aymiah made a very interesting point. She said at 23, she don't see herself getting a piece of land anywhere soon. And here's a young professional. And she's telling you, I don't see that vision. She's tried. She's a young entrepreneur trying as best as she can. But let's go back to the 70s or the 80s when we had bananas, for example. Banana was, one might say, let's say it might have been our CBI. because that was our main revenue earner. And that created a multiplier effect in the community. So a farmer, as you know, would have had his farm. Young persons, whether they may not have been actively involved, but I know a lot of my friends in the rural community whose parents were farmers. On weekends, they would go and help carry the bananas or do some chores as it relates to the farming and the farm. Farmers would get their monies, they would buy their vehicles. You would see they go to the bank and buy their pick up cash, no loan. They would send their children to school. They would send their children to further education. They would help their children to get their first piece of lot, their first piece of land, because the economy and the enabling environment allowed for that. But we're not seeing that now. Let me just
give him a minute.
From 93, and then from 91, you started to see some kind of revenue coming in, because obviously there had to be some promotion and all what needed to put in place. But in 2015, over that period, 1999 to 2018, in 2015, the CBI revenue in US dollars was 99.8 million. In 2016, it was 181.91 million. In 2017, it was 116.82 million. In 2018, it was 83.71 million. Now, while I mean, no one is saying that we should do it with the CBI, or the CBI is not providing the kind of revenue that it needs. The million-dollar question is, how are we using the resources or the revenue of the CBI to ensure that we have a sustainable economy, an economy whereby it is not geared in one direction? Obviously, hats off to Sam Raphael and Jungle Bates. Excellent job, excellent entrepreneur. But that in itself is not what's going to drive our economy. Again, I go back to Singapore. Some people might say, oh, Singapore is a nation. No, it's a question of vision and sustainability. And how do you see you want to push your country? And how do you engage young people? Let me say, for the benefit of Aymiah, when I joined the service in my 20s, by 23, maybe even 24, if I may say, 23, 24, I'd already owned a piece of land in Dominica. I had a lot at Wall House. I was 23, a young public servant in the public service. But the enabling environment allowed that. By 25, I took the plunge, because I felt at the time I was so financially stable, that I took the plunge and married, started a family. 3-4 years later, I was able to purchase another piece of property in Castle Comfort. So I'm saying so to say, the enabling environment allowed young persons like myself, and I can call several names, colleagues like myself who went to school with me then, who also were able to purchase land in Castle Comfort or in Wall House or wherever that might be. So we need to channel some of that resource into productive sectors. So folks like the Flacco, who, as he said, now is 43, or Aymiah, 20 years from now, she'll be 43. So she can see herself somewhere, or Everlina, or Lakeyia, and several other young people who may be listening to us this evening. So it is critical that we create that in the environment. I agree, Lakeyia, start where you are. I have no difficulty with that. But we have to, we cannot promote a society of giving a man a fish, which is the principle, and which is what we are running now. Instead of teaching him or her to fish, we're giving them that fish. And when I grew up as a young person, I was taught to go and fish and not given a fish. And that is the kind of mentality that we have to change. And as I said, our direction, our vision, our leadership must be geared further. Let me just end on one final note. Back in 2006, The CARICOM mandated what was called establish a commission on youth development. The CARICOM, that is, CARICOM commissioned that. And it was to undertake a full-scale analysis of the challenges and opportunity for youth in CARICOM, single market and the economy, CSME, and to make recommendations to improve their well-being and empowerment, unquote, in 2006. In 2007, in March of 2007, the commission was established. Conduct research leading to the report entitled, I quote, Eye on the Future, Investing in Youth Now for Tomorrow Community. And I like the idea somebody raised about community to community. I don't remember if it's Aymiah who raised. Bear in mind that told you 2006, 2007, 2010, you had a youth summit in Suriname. Again, that is dealing with the whole question of youth development, empowering youth, giving them that resource and that creating that enabling environment so that they are the future of tomorrow. It was not until last year, October of 2021, 15 years to be exact, from that very first 2006 that I mentioned, that they found the necessity to advertise for an individual consultant constructing the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan. 15 years later, after something was done in 2006, that was only then that they put something in action. The point I'm making is that we have all these reports, we make all those big pronouncements, but we don't put our words to action. And until we can put our words to action, create the enabling environment for young people, we will certainly be having that issue.
Can I wait a second?
Because I know
sure. And Flacco, my apologies. I didn't realize it.
Here. We don't understand that.
Hold on. Flacco, give me a minute.
Yeah.
My apologies. I didn't realize you hadn't finished your point. So go ahead, please.
Yeah. All of the reports and so are all well and good, you know. But what we don't understand is what we are handing down to the future generations that we don't talk about is the insulation. We teach our children to be insulated and to survive rather than to thrive and to live. Now, that education cannot come from anywhere outside of the home.
Right.
Okay? So, in closing my point, what I was basically saying is that we have to learn that demonstration of values is more effective than rhetoric. Talking about it is one thing, but to actually demonstrate the thing is a total other. And we need families that will demonstrate certain values to the next generation in handing down knowledge about the path to attainment, as opposed to simply being given a house and land or money. Rather than that, to impart onto the next generation how to add value to what they have inherited and to pass these assets on to their own generation. The other day we had this uproar about the Douglases and them at the river and so. And while I might understand the arguments on both sides, I have to appreciate that family, because you see, just look at an example as RBD Limited. A group of individuals inherited the assets of former family, and rather than split it up, they incorporated it and they managed the estate collectively. Now, because we don't grasp that concept in our own families, it might seem foreign and almost, but that is what we call a legacy, because to honor a legacy is to honor the contributions of those that came before us, and it is from, we might think people might be dead and gone, but we can take instruction from history and from the people that have gone before us. Because I can tell you one thing, if it wasn't for the many nights of my mother coming home and I hear her crying behind a closed door, because of the challenges she facing of coming up the ladder in a male-dominated society. You know, we have to appreciate those sacrifices, because these are the things that cushion in us, even when we cry in mercy, Lord. Is the sacrifices of my mother that enabling me right now to be able to survive, to stay afloat. I hear the other young lady talking about she not seeing herself owning land, and I feel for her, you know, because how many men out there want to maybe they don't have for themselves, but they would like to empower their family, you know, or some opportunity come to them and they're trying to develop themselves, you know. And here comes the elder generation, and instead of helping them up, giving them a step up, they break them down. It's like we have to change make those dynamics from the very basic unit of the family. The self-sufficiency, resilience starts from the family, you know. So if we're talking about surviving beyond the CBI, then we have to completely throw out the idea of CBI money and as a means of revenue altogether. Like the
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted,
some of
Blanco.
the tools that I think that we can use to identify those entrepreneurs. I mean, it's not hard. It's right out there. We see a lot of the youth out there with the entrepreneurial spirit. We might not approve of what they might choose to be involved in, but what's to say we cannot win them away from that and put them on a more productive and positive road? I looking at Bolo by Cables for years operating. Has nobody considered him as a potential for investment? Booyah Flavor was on the bayfront even before they had all these huts for tourism. Before there was the barman, Booyah was there every Friday night. Kati from C2 Juices, which the Prime Minister himself mentioned, JD's, C'est La Vie, Petit Jardin, and a whole host of small enterprises who have not been able to only stay afloat despite the odds, but also to keep achieving their own small milestones, you know?
Yeah,
So
and this is what I would add as well, Flacco, because it sounds like you have a lot of insights and you can point us to a lot of, the Dominican strivers that we're talking about, those who are striving for excellence. But
yeah,
in the interest of time,
Go ahead.
and I want you to come back so we can continue not just the conversation, but the actions which our caller alluded to. But I want to make sure that we also hear from Everlina and Aymiah because our time is
I think,
quickly
Simone, a call
running
is
out.
coming in. A call is coming in.
Yes. I'm coming to that, Alvin. Thank you. And then we will go over to Everlina and Aymiah. Yes, I saw the call. Lambi, go ahead, please.
I hope the caller is still there.
Yes. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening to the members of the panel. Now, I had a business in Dominica, a small business for 25 years, about 25 years. I never got 1 cent of help from the government. I did everything on my own, and then I took my little loans and I paid them back. Not 1 cent from the government. Do you all know, are you all aware that there was a small business unit operated by the government, I think since 2010?
Mm-hmm.
They said they're going to help small businesses. Now, a lot of people got cash. How many of these people who got 10,000, who got 20, who got 30, there was a disco opened in Castle Comfort. The man got, I think, more than $500,000. There was a grand opening. The government went there for the grand opening. There was about 8 or 10 ministers, including the Prime Minister. And they said that is a successful business, that they put almost $500,000 and gave him duty-free vehicles and all that. And the business lasted about 2 years and it closed down. I had one for 25 years, never got a cent from government. Now, the point I want to make, how is it when a politician wants your vote he can find you in the bush where you're hiding and come and knock your door. Or even if you oversee, he can go right oversee and find you to come now and vote for him. So he can get you, even though you're living in a cave, he will find you to come and vote for him. But when you need help, how is it you have to go to them and kneel down in front of them and beg them? The conditions in Dominica are not fair. You have some people selling passports and getting $80 and $100 million to build their hotels. But a small business person cannot get $20 and $30 and $50,000 to run their business. So things are not fair in Dominica, and I don't see no change. And let me tell you, I don't know. Have a good night. It's a good show. Good night.
Yes, thank you very much. So, Everlina, let me come over to you because I think someone mentioned that change is the only constant. I think that was Flacco that said that. And let's talk about the importance of being flexible while you're striving for excellence. So, how have you diversified to continue to secure an income for you? And then, Aymiah, I want to come over for your thoughts. And then, Flacco, back to you as we start connecting the dots. So, where do we go from here? Flacco, when I come back to you, let's start talking about where do we go from there? How do we connect those Sukis of the world with the Aymiahs, with the Lakeyias, so that we can continue this movement of creating economic opportunity in Dominica that will benefit not just the Aymiahs and the Lakeyias, but those they will be able to employ. So keep those questions in mind as Everlina, we come over to you to share with us on this topic.
Yes. As Flasco said, family is important, right? And I dedicate my success to my deceased mom, you know. And it's financially, it has been difficult. And because of, well, even before the war, we know there's a war going on, but it has been so slow that, Simone, you know, I have put my talented hands into order while being a hairdresser into order. I do I do rips for Christmas. I do during the independence season. I decorate. I do headpieces. I cover shoes like in the Creole material. So all that has been sustaining me, you know. So, you know, sometimes you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. And this has helped me a lot because, as I said, it's been very slow. So there I tap into my other talents. And again, as I said, I can decorate, I can do event planning because I did the course at UE, you know. So it's important that we always try to do other things. That's why skills are very important, you know. And I mean, where I am as a hairdresser, we really put the skills into it. I mean, you have to have the theory, but for me, it's really the skills because, you know, you have to be dealing directly with the clients, you know. So this is what have sustained me other than the hairdressing. I put my other talents into play.
Yes, and congratulations for being so innovative and realizing that you could just not sit on one career path, that you had to be creative and come up with other ways to earn an income. And it's a lesson for all of us. It's a lesson for all of us, including the CBI and this whole mono economy of investing in just infrastructure and buildings. We have to invest the money, like Alvin rightfully said, into other income engines, into other opportunities to generate income for the average Dominican who's not into, you know, building hotels and tourism. What about the other sectors of the economy? So, Aymiah, let me come over to you for your thoughts as we continue the discussion. Tell us a little bit more about Youth with a Vision, and then Flacco, let's come over to you after to start putting it all together.
Okay, so Youth with a Vision, as I stated previously, is a community-based organization. So it was founded in 2018, and we focus on helping the vulnerable, the elderly, the sick, the poor, the children. And we seek to basically pinpoint our projects based on helping these persons. So we may do things like feeding programs or maybe donating items to certain persons who we think are in need of it. So that's what Youth with a Vision does. And most of our projects, if not all, has been centered in the tri-community of Benz, Ansimi, and Ansolda. And we look forward to, I guess, even pushing this organization further and maybe extending out of our communities that we can help persons. And that is one thing I think we could do. And with respect to Everlina and the fact that she said that she's diverse and that she's looking to target many different fields in an effort to gain an income. And in my mind, as a young person, there is one thing that I never want to be, which is dependence. I never want to be dependent. So I am looking at ways where I can take myself from relying on others, whereas I can create an opportunity for myself to, I guess, economically, mentally, just holistically move myself from one spot into another. So from Youth with a Vision, which is a nonprofit organization, I actually created a business, which is Aymiah's Adverts, and I do marketing for small businesses. Because I came to the realization, once again, it goes back to the economy, that small businesses in Dominica cannot afford the regular advertising that are offered at the moment. So they can't really access it. So I decided to present, I guess, a more reasonable offer to persons, small businesses, to do video ads, audio ads, flyers, logos, and so forth. And in that effort, it will help me to gain an income, and it will also assist a small business in bringing their names forward, because there are many small businesses in Dominica that we're not aware of. And to me, I think that that's my way of contributing. My way of contributing is to give persons the knowledge that there are other people in Dominica who are hustling and who are seeking to move themselves from a struggle story into a success story. And that has been me. And I kind of live with the motto to be a legend and leave a legacy. So I always tell persons that I'm not inspired by getting rich or dying rich or whatever. It's always about dying and leaving a legacy behind, being a legend, so that I know that when I leave Dominica, when I leave this, if I have actually impacted others. Now, going to the direct question of if not CBI, then what? Mm-hmm. And I think if not CBI, agriculture. If not CBI, tourism. If not CBI, education. If not CBI, sports. We need to diversify our economy. Now, I have lived in Barbados because I was a student there, which means that I was centered there. That was prior to COVID, which means we had to have face-to-face classes. And while in Barbados, I keep on asking myself, why is Barbados more economically advanced than Dominica? And I cannot understand it, because Dominica is full of resources, natural resources specifically. So we have the rivers, the lakes, the beaches, the everything, which should make us the #1 tourist destination in the Caribbean. However, we fall behind because we do not maximize our resources. And I think that's the problem. So even if we switch from CBI, we always seek to focus on one aspect of the economy. We need to know how to branch out and allow all the aspects of the economy to thrive holistically, collectively. And I think that that's the way we should look in the future, and not just focus on one aspect. Because when we focus on one aspect of the economy, if that one aspect fails, then we're in problem. Mm-hmm. And as a people, we cannot afford for that to happen, because it's not like a household where you say, well, if my father loses his job, it impacts the 3 children. No, it's not. This is a country with a large populace. I mean, maybe we might not say large compared to the other islands or the countries in the world, but at the end of the day, there are people here who are relying on the economy to keep themselves afloat. And if we have a struggling economy, then we will have a struggling populace.
Yes, very well said. Very well said. Thank you, Aymiah. Flacco, let me come over to you. So our time is winding down. So in about 5 minutes, kind of just let's start connecting everything together with regards to what the caller said and what the direction that this conversation needs to go to, because this has to create action. This has to create a movement. So where do we go from here, Flacco? How do we connect the Sukis to the Aymiahs of the world?
Well, I think the movement has already started, because like the young lady has said, you know, there's a lot of small businesses that we may not have heard about, and importantly, there are a diverse number of small businesses. So the diversity that we're talking about is right there, you know, because when I hear diversity, I think that diversity means that all ideas have a chance at growth. You know, who knows what will be the next $1 million idea? You know, I look at, we have nature blends with Lakeyia, we have JD's Naturals, we have other, you know, small businesses coming up. But particularly those, if we have to use nature blends and JD's Naturals and such as an example, the product in itself is a source to just 1 million, you know. At the back of the JD's Natural is the agriculture behind of it, you know, because the raw materials must come from somewhere. So we need to come out of the mindset of, for example, let's take cassava. We cannot have the situation traditionally where the man that planting the cassava is the same man that making the flour, is the same man that baking the bread, is the same man that driving the bus, and that makes no sense. Where we could be making $5 million, we only making $1 million because we have one person trying to fulfill all these steps along the value chain. So we need our young people who are studying disciplines like marketing, branding, logistics, people doing involving distribution, certified specialists. We need these people to start to build those linkages, because if we're saying that we no longer going to depend on the CBI as a source of revenue, what's the next best source? To me, the next best source of revenue, particularly foreign revenue, is the diaspora. Now, if we can create brands that our diasporan brothers and sisters can identify with, we create logistical chains, value chains, and the essential part about that, Ole, is trust. Because the very reason why the man that trying to do the cassava, he trying to do it all by himself, is because he has no trust. The trust is not there. You understand? Because when you plant that crop and you put in that work and you bring it to this man, you expecting that you will be able to get some returns to go back and plant, to go and meet your commitments and your obligations. So we need to build back trust. So, and whenever we talk about these things, we stepping out of the boundaries of economics and we're talking about social issues now. You know, we cannot talk about trust only from an economic perspective. We have to understand, why is it we don't trust each other? Why is it that I cannot trust a man with $100 around the corner? It's because all of us are in survival mode. We are not thriving. We are insulating ourselves against each other. Nobody would want to end up with the short end of the stick. But in order to build community, first of all, to build cooperatives, you must have community. And to have community, you must have trust. So we have to go back we have to talk about abandoning party colors. We have to talk about regaining our sense of nationhood, because our survival going to depend on each of us, you know, all of us going to have to pull together to make it happen, you know. So earlier on, Lakeyia was saying that she did not particularly identify with the idea of cannabis as an industry. But to me, when I hear nature blends, I hear cannabis, because when you look at the biochemistry and all of that, why not have a cannabis cosmetic line, which you can market Everlina, you know? So we have to stop looking at ourselves as islands, you know, because we don't exist in a vacuum. And when we begin to build those value chains, then we can start talking about incorporation, cooperatives, and then attacking grant proposals, grant funding, all the existing and emerging small enterprises need growth assistance capital because we're going to need them for employment. We're going to need them. What we're going to do? Allow places like we have to close down, which are iconic to Dominica and to Roseau. We cannot just sit by and allow these things to, you know, and I don't want to make reference to the CBI because we're already saying, if not the CBI. So to me, CBI is already out of my mind. The strongest is not who will survive. Who will survive is those who are adaptable to change.
Yep.
And you have some people who do not want to change.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, Flacco, because I can tell you have a wealth of information. So I'm looking forward to have you as part of this movement, as part of the conversation. But in the interest of time, let's just go around the room 1 minute each as we share our final thoughts and we wind down the program for this evening. Thank you so much, Flacco. Alvin, 1 minute.
I don't know, Simone, but we're going to have a part 2. We got to have a part 2.
Because there's so much more I have to say.
I mean, I know Flacco have a lot more to say, Everlina and Aymiah. I mean, we got to have a part 2. And I mean, I'm just so moved, and there is a lot of hope and positivity in what have come out so far from these young folks. I think Flacco is so right when he spoke of family and values and trust. I think civility has gone out of the window, and that's what makes and builds a nation. So he is so right. I mean, I heard Aymiah talk about community and that type of thing. I hear Everlina talk about resilience and adaptable to change. I mean, I know that Dominica has what it takes, but I will be honest with you, as I've said earlier, a country or a nation requires vision and leadership. And I don't want to sound like a preacher, but the good books tell you, where there is no vision, a people perish. I mean, there's no other way about it. So until we can find that vision and to create back again that trust, that enabling environment, that value, that family, that community, that food bar that we knew back then, because we can do a lot of things. I mean, he mentioned cassava. What about bay oil? I mean, we were one of the leading lime producers in the world at one time. Limes, bananas, bay oil. I mean, water. We have the most water flowing out in the ocean. And yet we import water from islands that don't even have a drop of what we have. So it's all about leadership. I mean, Aymiah speaks about, if not CBI agriculture, and she mentioned some other industry. Let me just say for you, for the benefit of this discussion, in 2015, the CBI marketing amount spent on CBI was $5.88 million. The amount spent on Discover Dominica Authority, which is supposed to be the arm that promotes tourism and nature isle and come here and less, $2.86 million. The amount that was spent on the Ministry of Commerce as an operating budget was $210,000. The amount that was spent on agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture, was $4.19 million. Remember, I told you CBI was 5.8. Let's look at 2016. In 2016, the amount that was spent on marketing of the CBI was $15.07 million. The amount that was spent on Discover Dominica Authority was $4.05 million. The amount that was spent on the Ministry of Commerce is $210,000. And the amount that was spent on agriculture, $4.2 million. CBI was $15.7 million. So while we, you know, some of us, I mean, not all, are saying, well, you know, we are not here promoting to do with the CBI. What we are saying is that if so much emphasis is gone there, that you can put $15.7 million to market the CBI, but yet you're putting $4.2 million for agriculture, where we can do our bay oil, we can do our cassava, we can do our, you name it. So many other stuff we could do: agriculture, passion fruit, commerce, business again. We only put $210,000 there for 2016 operating budget. So how are we going to expect to grow the Everlinas and the Aymiahs and the Lakeyia? But having said that, though, I have hope. Seriously, I have hope in the young people of Dominica, in the Flacos, and those who are listening to us right now. I have hope, Simone. And we believe that it's going to change. Whether it change by whether, change sometimes comes in different ways, Whether we like it or not, sometimes it has to happen. So there's going to be change. In the United States of America, the small businesses, economic factors in the United States, small businesses, and an enabling environment for them.
Alvin, I think you're sticking. So let's go over to Everlina as we wind down.
Yes. Let me just say thank you for being in the presence of such privileged people. And I know I did not have much time. And as Mr. Thomas said, we're the older folks there. So I was really listening. I had so much to say and so much to present, but time did not permit me. So let me just say again, if not CBI, then what? We have our water, which was a point I had to bring up. We could get into the water, exporting our water, because we have so much water and clean water, Simone. Clean water, Mm-hmm. So again, the time did not permit me. So again, my name is, for those who join us late, my name is Everlina Blanc from Everglow's Beauty Salon on 47 Cork Street. And it was a pleasure being here tonight. And I was just saying thank you again. And thanks to the listening public, both here and abroad. Just continue to come to my business, one and all, because I need the money. Yes. So yes, of course. So yes, just as the just support the young entrepreneurs out there. Please, please, please. Just support, because we need you just as much as you need us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Everlina. Aymiah, over to you.
Okay, right. So we're back to the important question. If not CBI, then what? We have to come to the realization that we live in a country with its full potential. And unless we tap into the potential, and potential meaning our resources, unless we tap into our resources, we will realize that we have been blindfolded to a possible blossoming economy. Because the fact that we believe that we cannot diversify our economy, we are blindfolded. And it's time that we remove the blindfold so that we can reach our fullest potential. And there is a recent song which came out. It's Kenty, and it's entitled Dominica. And it says that you're beautiful indeed, but beauty ain't worth a thing to a man in need. So as much as we boast a country full of mountains and rivers and valleys and sunshine, lush and beautiful people, as much as we boast that, if we do not tap into the potential of the mountains, of the rivers, of the oceans, of the parrots, then we are just an island that is deserted. Because at the end of the day, if we are just boasting forests and trees, it's like having an island with no people on it. We need to boast these resources and kind of combine them for human resources, where we can see persons actually making full use of our rivers, like she said, exporting our water and so forth. So to me, if not CBI, then what? I would answer tapping into our resources and our potential.
Yes, thank you for that. And thank you, everyone. This was an incredible conversation with our panel. Thank you to our Facebook audience, our Q95 listeners. Let's just take a couple of comments on Facebook before we wind down for the evening. So we see Ronald Riley, who says business back then thrived because of unity. People were more kind and supportive of each other. Yuslil Royer, thank you for being here. Good evening to you. And Notice Isadora, good evening. Thank you for being here. Chris Bugunu, the great pleasure is to see Dr. Simone engaging continuously with our local and intellectual personals. It's making my heart glad with her existence. Wow, thank you. I know Flacco, little brother, Coed nephew, my further grandchild. Okay, thank you for all that. Chris Buganu, Jennifer Coffey, great to see you. Manuel Pierre, thank you for being here. Priscilla Samuel, Lakeyia Joseph, thank you for sharing your experience talking on behalf of entrepreneurs in Dominica. Paula Emmanuel, great to see you. Let's see who else is here. Vanya Ogis, thank you for being here. Emo News, wonderful to see you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for service to country. Nana Matthew, wonderful to see you. So we have quite an interesting conversation going on the Facebook Live. So we want to thank everyone who participated in that Facebook engaging conversation. Mystery Pro, those who are employed don't make enough money to rent an apartment, let alone own a home. So thank you everyone for your wonderful contribution. Diamond Alistair, we need to move away from teaching to be employed, but rather teach to create employment. So our curriculum needs amendment. Start normalizing teaching trade is equivalent to a BS. Thank you so much, everyone. Peter Carbon, great to see you. Institutions are the building block to the economy. Agriculture requires support services to facilitate production and marketing. Pastor Alexander Scotland, great to see you. Thank you for being here. So quite an interesting conversation. And we want to thank everyone who joined in. Omar Monell, someone who recommended this program. I want to thank you for being here as well. And thank you, everyone. Nestor Philip, great to see you. So thank you for being here. So as we wind down the program, we want to make sure that we continue to keep this focus. So how do we connect the two groups, right? Those who have walked the path to success, those strivers who came before us, the Sukis, the Earl Etiennes, the Mr. G's of the world. How do we connect them? And the answer, as we talked about, is through mentorship, through apprenticeship. So what role can we each play? Because let us face it, we are fighting so many battles in Dominica and the rest of the world. But this is a movement which can connect all sides of Dominican society. So it doesn't matter if you're red, if you're blue, if you're green, it doesn't matter, because we all want to see Dominica thrive economically. So the questions we have to ask ourselves as we wind down the program is, what role can each of us play? What are we willing to do to support this movement of connecting those who have walked the path to those who are striving for excellence? Are you a Dominican striver who would like to serve as an inspiration, as we've seen here tonight, right? Can you recommend someone who's a young Dominican striver, somebody we want to highlight as someone who's walking the path? Have you yourself walked the path? You came from a very humble beginning. You've walked the path to success, and you are ready to give back to Dominica. You're ready to teach, to mentor, to show the young people the ropes. And if you are, I would really love to hear from you. You can reach me at pushpast10@gmail.com. So again, that is pushpast10@gmail.com, because it is time to walk the talk. It is important that we have the conversations, but it's also important that we walk the talk and help those who are coming behind us to succeed. So I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank our panel, Everlina, Blanc, Flacco, Aymiah, Alvin Thomas, who dropped off. I think his internet went bad, as well as Lakeyia Joseph, who joined us for a little while. So we continue to build our international community and create concrete and practical opportunities for financial independence in Dominica. And I really hope that you will join this movement. So of course, keep it locked to Q95, the big station for all the best in programming. And please feel free to jump on Q95da.com for any programs that you may have missed along the way. Follow Q95 FM Radio and Push Past 10 on Facebook as we continue to build an international village, a global community of Dominicans at home and abroad to help to move this movement. And I mentioned in the beginning that we had a celebration for Earl Etienne's life, featuring Mr. Raymond Lawrence as well as Carla Amore and Arnold Tulo. And if you want to enjoy that program, if you missed it along the way, you can jump on pushpast10.com, pushpast10.com, so you too can enjoy the celebration of a national treasure, Mr. Earl Etienne. So again, panel, you can unmute your mic as we say good evening to everyone, and we thank them for being here. And again,
Thank you so much.
And I look forward to meeting you again. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we will have part 2.
Yes.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Joe! Rastafari.